Hey guys, my name is Matsumiyo, and welcome to another episode of Monday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for the day is, what are your thoughts on Ash no longer have access to the ACOG in Rainbow Six Siege? Do you think they went too far with this nerf? So I realize a fair amount of people aren't really too thrilled with this change, and I can see where they're coming from. By removing the ACOG, you're essentially removing a specific playstyle. You're no longer going to be nearly as effective at long range when you are using the specific weapon. It's basically forcing you to play more aggressively. That said though, I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad as people are making it out to be. The first reason is that if you do want to have more of that long range potential, you can still use her other weapon, which still has access to that attachment. On top of that though, Ash is already known for being an aggressive operator. She's all about using her speed to her advantage to close the gap against you. And so while yes, in some situations, if you're trying to outrange a Rook or a Doc, you are now going to be at a disadvantage. But if you are playing Ash as an aggressive operator, and maybe this is exactly what Ubisoft is going for. Maybe they're trying to infuse a different playstyle or a mentality when you're playing as specific operators. They said in the article that Ash is going to be the test bed, and so maybe what they're going for is that they don't want Ash to be that long range operator. They want her to get up close and personal, and that is kind of further defining of the class by removing the ACOG for that specific weapon. This is the same thing that people were saying about Jaeger and Bandit when they had their ACOGs removed. Now, a couple of years later, they're still some of the best defenders in the game. It did require people to adapt their playstyle, but once they did get acclimated to that new role that they needed to fulfill, they're still phenomenal. And so my hope is that's going to be the same thing for Ash, but of course only time will tell. The next question is, did you hear about the poor lag and netcode in Apex Legends? I did hear about that. So if you're unaware of what he's referring to, there was a great video done by Battle Nonsense who basically outlined the network performance of Apex Legends, and it's not a stellar review. Now personally, I love the game, but the more I play it, the more I notice these problems. I think the reason why it hasn't been more noticeable is because everyone has a lot of health. The TTK, or how long it takes for you to take someone out, is really long, and so because of that, it gives you more time to react. If this game was like Rainbow Six Siege, or players just simply had a smaller health pool and you could drop people quicker, I think these problems become a lot more noticeable. That said though, the more you do play, the more you do start to notice these issues. Getting shot around corners, getting taken out around corners, which is incredibly frustrating. I'm getting flashbacks to like Battlefield 4 days, when you're going against someone who has purple armor and it seems to take an eternity to be able to break that armor. But when you're on the receiving end and you have purple armor, for some reason it drops instantaneously. Those are the kinds of issues that are popping up because of that poor network performance. Now the real question is though, what are the developers going to do about it? If they want to take this to the next level, and I think that they can, because this game has exploded out of nowhere. This game has gained an incredible amount of traction in a short period of time, and if they want to elevate this and make it one of the battle royales for the next couple of years, I think they really do need to focus on this network performance. Even though your gameplay is a lot of fun and incredibly satisfying, if people start to run into these issues, they're going to get annoyed, they're going to get frustrated, they're going to stop playing, which of course is exactly what you don't want if you want your game to be successful. Now, the reality of it though is that there isn't going to be a simple solution. If people are expecting them just to kind of flip a couple of switches and the netcode is going to be flawless, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. A really good example of this is Battlefield 4. When that came out, it was an awful state, not just with the network, but that was one of its biggest issues, and it took them more than a year to finally get it in a stable place at 60 hertz. And while I'm hopeful that it doesn't take Apex Legends an entire year to get to that point, I'm hoping it's going to be a bit faster than that, I also realize that there isn't going to be a simple solution and it is going to take some time. All in all though, while it is disappointing and it does verify what I've been experiencing in games sometimes, it doesn't completely ruin the experience. I'm still loving Apex Legends. I think it is one of the best battle royales out there right now. It's everything I've been waiting and hoping for in a BR, and I'm just really crossing my fingers they're going to be able to resolve this problem as soon as possible. The next question comes from Devin, and it is, what are your thoughts on the newcomer playlist coming to Rainbow Six Siege? I'm honestly a little surprised that Ubisoft decided to do this. So if you're not aware of what he's referring to, in this next season, there are going to be 3 different playlists. You have ranked, casual, and then the new one called Newcomer. The way that it works is that if you are clearance level 50 and below, you're going to be able to play in this new mode. It's essentially Ubisoft's way at trying to create a better environment for newer players to just get started with Rainbow Six Siege. If your first couple of games are against people that have been playing since the very beginning, you might have a frustrating experience and you might not touch the game ever again. And so this is trying to ease them into what Rainbow Six Siege is all about. Now, in theory, this sounds great, and it might be exactly what newcomers need for the game, but I do have my concerns. The biggest one is, what are queue times going to be? Because now we're going to be split between 3 different modes, and only people that are 50 clearance and below can actually participate in it, that of course is going to limit the pool base overall. And so if there's just less people queuing, that's going to increase the queue times. And so if people are trying to play the game, they notice that the queue times for the newcomer mode is like 5 minutes, they may just completely ignore it and jump into casual. That is going to exacerbate the problem. Less people are queuing, queue times get longer, of course that's going to cause less people to queue, and it might get to the point where just no one wants to play in this new game mode, and that becomes a serious issue. The other concern I have is that this does nothing to stop Smurfs. If you're someone who's played the game for a while, you could buy a new account or just participate in the free weekend, and now you're going against a pool of players with the majority of them being brand new to the game, and you're going to dominate basically every single round, which of course is going to ruin the experience for everyone else. Now I realize that's kind of already the issue that we have right now in Rainbow Six Siege for newer players, but it definitely does not stop that problem entirely. All in all though, I am hopeful. I want this to succeed, and who knows, maybe Rainbow Six Siege has gotten to the point where it's large enough and it has enough players where it doesn't run into the issues that we just talked about, but I do have my concerns. I want this to work, but only time will tell. The next question comes from Mate, and it is, what do you think are the best weapons in Apex Legends right now? Well, I gotta admit that for the most part, and we'll get to the ones that are the exception here in a second, most weapons are really well balanced. As long as you know how to use them properly and in the right situations or distance that you're supposed to use them, you can outperform or outskill other players. Even if you're using a weapon that's not meant to be used in situations, if you're the better player, you can usually come out on top, and so I gotta commend them for that. That said though, there are some outliers. I think right now, the Peacekeeper probably needs to see some tuning down. It can be really unreliable, but when it hits ridiculously hard. Being able to two-shot people, even if they have purple armor, seems to be a bit extreme. It seems like we're getting to the point now where if you don't have a Peacekeeper and it's the end of the game, it's not an auto loss, like don't get me wrong, but it just seems like that's what everyone is running right now. And so I gotta say that's probably one of the best. Other than that though, I would say my favorite weapons right now are the Spitfire. It's incredibly accurate, does a lot of damage, it's got a lot of rounds at its disposal to chunk through a lot of people's armor and health. People take a while to take out, so that's a great one. The R301 is also one of my favorites. It does require attachments. That's the biggest thing. If you don't have an extended mag, you are probably going to struggle. You don't have a lot of rounds to work with, but when you do and you get it fully kitted, it is laser beam-like accurate. It's very versatile. It can do well at close, medium, and even to some extent at long range. It's just an overall really solid, consistent weapon, and for that reason, it's probably one of my top choices. And then finally, the Wingman. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this weapon because on the one hand, I'll have rounds where I'm nailing headshots left, right, and center, and then I'll have other games where the other players are strafing back left and right, and I can't hit the broadside of a barn door. But when you do line up your shots though, the thing is an absolute monster. And so all in all, I would say Peacekeeper, Spitfire, 301, and the Wingman, at least right now, are my top choices. The next question comes from Anthony, and it is, Frost is in need of a rework, so I was thinking, what if the mat size were reduced but couldn't be taken out with your weapon? Nades are a way of dealing with the traps. Well, I do agree that Frost is in need of a rework. Ubisoft has even said that she's way too binary right now. Either her traps actually take someone out, which is a huge benefit to the defensive team, or they do absolutely nothing. They want to make it so that it has some impact more frequently, but maybe not as much of an impact when they do go off. And so with your suggestion, while I do agree that this would be a gigantic upgrade, I don't think that's the direction that Ubisoft, or really I, would want for Rainbow Six Siege. The one big issue issue that I can think of with this idea is that I feel like some objectives would entirely revolve around the offensive team trying to counter her gadgets. On Chalet, for example, in Trophy Room, you probably need to get through that window. Now, it's not required. There are other ways, of course, to get towards the objective, but that is a really popular spot. If she places a couple of her traps around that window, even if they're smaller, if they jump on in, one of them is going to activate and it's going to take them out. If they haven't brought nades, there's no way they're getting in. Even if you do bring the required operators like Sledge and his nades, that still doesn't guarantee they're going to take care of her gadgets. All that you need on defense then is a Jaeger. So Jaeger takes out a bunch of those nades. Even if you throw a couple of flash nades in, like, they could completely stop you from getting through certain sections because of that new dynamic. And so, well, I get where you're going. I do think that Frost needs a rework. I do think that they need to do something to try to make her less binary. I really think that this would be pushing things way too far and isn't exactly what Frost needs right now. But of course, that is just my 2 cents. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Monday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Are you excited about the upcoming patch? Are you disappointed about the Ashe nerf? Do you think they should have gone about it another way? Let me know down below in the comments. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.